and welcome back to this week's edition of I prefer the 80s and 90s sports podcast. My name is Richard Harris, and in this podcast, I talk about the world of sports and why I prefer the sports of the 80s and 90s over today. Hope your Friday is going well. Today's topic is a generic topic again. I was in a discussion the other night with a young lady, and we were talking about the GOATs. And I think that I made myself pretty clear to her why I think Mike's the GOAT, Joe Montana's the GOAT, Usain Bolt's the GOAT. And to me, what a GOAT to me is a player, man or woman, who does something in their sport at the top of the sport better than anything I've ever seen, and better than everyone that ever did it before them, with them, and even after them. And I feel like this generation's biggest flaw, top flaw, is that they don't understand the evolution of all sports and how to play all sports. And I think that is why they get confused or get twisted, angered, tweaked about the discussion of the GOATs, because certain criterion matters in one thing, certain criteria don't matter in certain things. Certain times, it's just what you see. I don't tell people that they're wrong when they have their opinion about the GOAT conversation. I just try to reinforce how right I am about who I think the GOATs are. To me, I can't say Brady's the GOAT in football because he lost to my team twice in the biggest game, in the game that everyone says is the defining moment of all sports. I also can't say that he's the greatest quarterback or greatest football player to play because I've saw somebody play who I think is better. I saw Joe Montana play. I saw the era in which Joe Montana played, the 80s and 90s of football, is a hell of a lot harder than today. And it's because the rules are different today. The style of play is different today. And the bottom line is that, to me, kind of disqualifies a lot of the conversations about GOATs. Now you say, you can't do that. Well, you can do that. Because I can sit there and say, if Joe Montana and Jerry Rice played in this era of football with that offense that they had, that style, they would have won 7 to 10 Super Bowls. Because in Joe Montana and Jerry Rice's day, you couldn't hit receivers over the middle in the head. Or you could, but today you can't. In Joe Montana and Jerry Rice's day, you couldn't hit the quarterback low. You couldn't hit him definitely in the head, and you sure as hell couldn't hit him the hit that Montana took against Jim Burt when the Giants beat the Niners 49-3 in the playoff game. And so I can't sit here, and I hear everybody every day, they call him Brady the GOAT, the GOAT, the GOAT, the GOAT, the GOAT, the GOAT, the GOAT. And I'm like, he's not the GOAT. Because his Super Bowl wins happened in spite of him, with him, and because of him. I look at Montana and I can say his Super Bowl wins happened, all of them, because of him. At least, well, I can say all of them because of him. There's not one player on his defenses, Montana's defenses, that has made the Hall of Fame. Now, you may say Charles Haley, but I think Charles Haley came after Montana left. But if Charles Haley is an answer, then I take that statement back. But Fred Dean's not in the Hall of Fame, I don't think. Hacksaw Reynolds is not in the Hall of Fame, I don't think. I mean, obviously, well, Ronnie Lott's in the Hall of Fame, so I'll give Ronnie Lott love. Okay, so I take that statement back. Ronnie Lott's in the Hall of Fame, and he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He, in my opinion, is the greatest safety to ever play the game. So, okay, fine. But Patriots got to Super Bowls and won Super Bowls because of their defense. And Ty Law is in the Hall of Fame from that. Richard Seymour's in the Hall of Fame because of that. And there should be other people who are in the Hall of Fame. Junior Seau wasn't a he didn't play, but won Super Bowl with the Patriots. But he's a Hall of Famer. But he was not like a Rodney Harrison or other players who were main cogs for the reason why the Patriots won. But I can say with a straight face that the Patriots didn't win every Super Bowl because of Tom Brady. And in fact, Brady's best game in the Super Bowl, he lost. His performance against the Eagles, where he threw for 500 yards and set all kinds of records, they lost. But my point to her and point to all is just because someone says something doesn't necessarily make it true. And these GOAT conversations are usually predicated upon a lot of people saying a lot of the same thing as opposed to a lot of people seeing the same thing. For some reason, when we all watch sports, we see it all differently. People see, LeBron, for example, in basketball as a GOAT because LeBron is a playmaker. And so he does everything on the court. He supposedly can guard all 5 positions. And I specifically say supposedly because I promise you that had he played in the 80s and the 90s, there's no way in heaven or hell he could have guarded Shaq, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, Kareem. I mean, come on. These people today make it sound like, he could guard anybody. He couldn't have guarded the centers. He couldn't have guarded Tim Duncan. And so people need to stop saying that. But they won't. But this generation regards LeBron as a GOAT because he did a lot. He does a lot of things on the court, and therefore not many players can do or did what he did. And so basically, her point was that he is, so versatile that he does it all. And I respect that opinion. But I look at it and I say, but. And I try not to be smug and snooty about it. But here's the simple fact in this argument. LeBron can play all the positions. He passes the ball beautifully. But was he the best offensive player and defensive player at the same time in his generation? And the answer is no. Did he ever make first team all defense? He may have. I don't even need to look it up because I know Michael Jordan did. I know Michael Jordan is the only man to win Defensive Player of the Year and win the scoring title, and not win the scoring title by scoring 28, 29. No, by scoring 35. That's crazy. I mean, that's almost, if not a third of your team's points. It's more than a third of your team's points. Because no one was averaging 110 points a game, 115 points a game, 105 points a game. And to still be the best defender. That's drop the mic moment. But this generation don't think that matters. This generation sees him as a selfish player because he shot a lot because he had games where he was 5 for 20 or 9 for 30. They think he shot too much. Some called him a ball hog. But the bottom line is the goal is to put the ball in the basket. And if he's the guy who's doing it the most and the best, he could be a ball hog for me anytime. But my other thing I said to her that struck a chord with her is that people today don't know how to play the games. Whether it's tennis, whether it's golf, basketball, football, baseball, teams, players don't know how to play the game. And then people say, well, the game has changed, so everything is different. No. The same premise in every game is still the same. In golf, the goal is to get the ball in the hole in the least amount of shots. In tennis, it's the same thing. To win points in the best, fastest way. And basketball, the premise is to put the ball in the basket. Baseball is to score runs. Football is to score touchdowns. And so I don't think teams know how to do those things intelligently. I'm watching a tennis match right now. Coco Gauff is playing against Jessica Pegula. They both are the number 2 ranked doubles team in the world. So let's backward track to the 1980s and 90s. Martina Navratilova played doubles with Pam Shriver. What did Pam Shriver and Martina Navratilova do in singles matches? Martina was always playing serve and volley, so I can't count her. But Pam Shriver, she served and volleyed. People say Boris Becker could have been the greatest tennis player ever to live if he had played tennis the way he did when he first came out, which was serving and volleying. That's common sense. Pete Sampras could baseline rally with anybody. But Pete said, no, I have to serve and volley because I can serve and volley. And then they say today, well, they don't serve and volley as much because players return better. Players don't return better. If you learn how to place your serve when you're serving and volley, it doesn't matter how great a returner is, because you then can kind of dictate where they're going to hit the ball, what portion of the court you can take away. And so I'm astonished that the second best doubles team in the world, when they play singles, won't serve and volley. I'm astonished in pitching. When you're watching a pitcher overpower teams, because now every pitcher can throw 100 miles an hour, and they try to be cute by throwing a changeup or throwing a curveball when the batter couldn't touch the fastball. I watched teams for years, the last 5 years, where teams had shifts and players couldn't hit the ball where there was vacant spots to hit the ball. And then I hear announcers say players in this era would struggle with the pitching because it's too fast. They wouldn't struggle with the pitching. Players adjust. Professional baseball players know how to adjust. And so when I hear people talk about GOATs today, I'm like, GOATs today, the players don't know how to play the games. Imagine if they did. Imagine if they knew how to play screen and roll basketball. That's how Denver just won the NBA championship. Imagine if they knew how to defend it. Nobody knew how to defend it. It's funny. The Bulls and the Lakers. The Bulls first won 6 championships using the same offense. Then Phil Jackson took that offense and went to the Lakers and won 3 more. And you're like, dude, you had 9 years to prepare for this defense, for this offense. Y'all still can't figure out how to stop it? That was my thing with college football. Nick Saban. Everyone says that he's the greatest college football coach, and I'd be like, he's a great coach, and all his disciples are now coaching around the country in different parts of the world, different schools of the world. And supposedly, up until 2 years ago, none of them ever beat him. And I'd be like, duh. You know why they can't beat him? Because he's smart. He's not teaching them all the bags of tricks, all the things he has in his little toolbox, in his little bag of tricks. He'll let them see some new stuff, but he don't let them see all stuff. And he beats them all. And then finally, Kirby Smart recently, he's beaten them. But the fact of the matter to me is, dude, you play this guy all the time. You should get a bead on what he does. You've coached under him for 10 years, 5 years. You should know what he does, what he thinks. And that's why I'm always like, I don't see how people can call people goats in this era, because I'm like, how can you call somebody a goat in this era when they don't know how to play the game? Explain that to me. The game today is different in almost every single solitary sport. So I don't understand how someone can objectively look at both eras of sports and say, well, this is why this guy's better. Do you imagine what would happen if that person was in that sport? The company line is, if Michael Jordan played in the NBA today, he'd average 45 points a game. Now his career average is 30. So that means he would average 15 more points per game. That's insane. That's almost 40%. And they say, well, LeBron, his numbers would still be the same. He'd still average about 27, 7, and 8. That's what he would be, because that's who he is. But Mike wouldn't. Even that logic, just put that to logic. If you're saying the dude will average 15 more points per game in a different era, wouldn't that make you think that would make him better? Jerry Rice scored 197 touchdowns, I believe, as a receiver, and he has, some as a running back. He has over 215 total career touchdowns in an era in which they could kill receivers who went over the middle, manhandle him, be tremendously, physical with them. In an era when they could do that. Today they can't do that. So you imagine him coming off the ball, not being able to be touched, having him have free releases, and Joe Montana throwing him the ball. How many more touchdowns would they have scored? And so I'll conclude by saying this. Stop having the GOAT discussion, because it's not intelligent. They talk about Babe Ruth, and they say, well, Babe Ruth's the greatest baseball player ever lived. They won't give Barry Bonds any credit because of the PED scandal, but they say Babe Ruth's the guy. But then people say, wait a minute, he didn't face no black people. Okay. What makes you think he would hit a home run off a black person? When he hit home runs off everything? When the dude called his shot. In golf, it's Tiger or Jack. Well, they say, well, Tiger catches Jack, he's the GOAT. Well, he's got more wins than Jack, just not as many majors as Jack. And the fields are bigger and harder to win it. But no, people still say Jack. Stop having the conversation. I would.